In today's video, we are going to discuss completing the square. You can use this technique of completing the square when you have a quadratic equation, which has the standard form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. The form that we are aiming for looks like this. A, and then in brackets, x plus p squared plus q equals 0. This form is often used when determining the turning point easily and to find the x-intercepts or roots as they are also called. It also makes drawing some graphs easier. We are going to look at two thorough examples to understand how completing the square works. Then I'm going to show you a formula that you can use directly to successfully complete the square. First example, solve x squared plus 6x negative 16 equals 0 by completing the square. Firstly, see that the equation given is already in standard quadratic form, so you can get the a, b, and c values directly from the equation. A being 1, b being 6, and c being negative 16. Calculate b over 2a, as you would need this to complete the square. Move the negative 16 to the right hand side, turning it into positive 16. Now, add your value of b over 2a, which is 3, to both sides of the equation and square this value. In algebra, you can do anything, as long as you do the same thing on both sides of the equation. Now, notice how you can neatly factorize this into only one bracket squared. FOIL this out to see if it's correct. If a was, let's say 2, then you would have put the 2 in front of the brackets. Add 16 and 9 together to get 25. Subtract both sides by 25 to get negative 25 on the right hand side. This negative 25 is your y value for the turning point, also called the stationary point. And negative 3 will be your x value for the turning point. Because if x is negative 3, the bracket's value will be 0. Now to find the x-intercepts, which are also called the roots. Add 25 to both sides to take the negative 25 to the right hand side. The opposite sign of an exponent is a square root. So square root both sides to get rid of the exponent at the brackets. And remember to put a plus minus sign in front of the right hand side square root, because a negative times a negative can also give you a positive value. For example, 5 times 5 is 25, but negative 5 times negative 5 is also 25. Thus the plus minus sign. Now you have x plus 3 plus or minus 5. Subtract 3 from both sides to take the 3 to the right hand side. Then you'll get x equals negative 3 plus minus 5. So x can be negative 3, negative 5, or negative 3 plus 5, which results in x1 equals 8 and x2 equals 2. We have successfully gotten the turning point and the roots of the equation. Now drawing the graph will be a lot easier. Because of the coefficient of x squared being 1, which is positive, the graph's turning point will be its lowest value and it will look like this. Moving on to the second example, solve 3x squared minus 12x minus 4 equals 0 by completing the square. This example will be a bit different because the x squared has a coefficient other than 1. Its coefficient is 3. In the first step, divide the entire equation by 3 so that you have only one x squared. Move the negative 4 over 3 to the right hand side by adding 4 over 3 to both sides. Then calculate the value of b over 2a, which is negative 2, to complete the square. Add negative 2 to both sides and square it. Remember to put the negative 2 in brackets. Putting the negative sign in brackets ensures that you square the entire negative number, resulting in a positive value, which is 4. Factorize the left-hand side by completing the square. You can FOIL out the brackets to check if you arrive at the right expression. 4 over 3 plus 4 is 16 over 3 on the right-hand side. Remember to multiply the entire expression by a, which is 3, because without this, your graph is not going to be steep enough and you will only have a x squared and not a 3x squared. In this form, we can get the turning point. The x value of the turning point will be 2, because when x is 2, the bracket's value will be 0, and your y value for the turning point will be negative 16. Now, to solve for the roots or the x-axis intercepts, divide the entire expression by 3 to get rid of the 3 in front of the bracket. Opposite sign of an exponent is a square root, so take the square root of both sides to cancel the bracket's exponent. Remember to put a plus minus sign in front of the right hand side's square root, because a negative times a negative can still give you a positive value. Add 2 to both sides to take the negative 2 to the right hand side, and then you are left with x equals 2 plus or minus the square root of 16 over 3. To get your first x value, you type 2 minus the square root of 16 over 3 into your calculator and write down your answer. For the second value of x, you type 2 plus the square root of 16 over 3 into your calculator and write down that answer as well. Now you have successfully gotten your roots. Because you have your x-axis intercepts and your turning point, you can graph the expression 3x squared negative 12x negative 4. Because the coefficient of x squared is positive, your graph's turning point will be its lowest value. It sounds too good to be true, but you can use the following formula to complete almost any square, where your a, b, and c values are still the values which you get from the standard form of the quadratic equation, ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Let's look at this equation. 2x squared plus 5x negative 8 equals 0. Notice that this quadratic is already in standard form, so we can get the values for a, b, and c directly from the equation. Substitute your values into the equation previously mentioned and simplify the expression. You can get the turning point exactly the same as the previous examples, the y value being negative 89 over 8 and the x value being negative 5 over 4. It is negative 5 over 4 because that and the positive 5 over 4 will cancel each other out in the bracket and will make the bracket's value 0. Now to solve for the x-intercepts or roots, add 89 over 8 to both sides to take the negative 89 over 8 to the right hand side. Divide both sides by 2 to get rid of the bracket's coefficient. 89 over 8 divided by 2 is 89 over 16. Take the square root of both sides and don't forget your plus minus sign, because as previously said, a negative times a negative gives you a positive number. Subtract 5 over 4 from both sides to isolate the x. Now you have negative 5 over 4 plus or minus the square root of 89 over 16. To get your two values for x, manually type in your calculator negative 5 over 4 minus the square root of 89 over 16 to get your x1 value. And then negative 5 over 4 plus the square root of 89 over 16 to get your x2 value. You have both the turning point and the x-axis intercepts. Now you can plot your graph. Same as the previous example, the coefficient of x squared is positive, so your turning point will be the lowest point in your graph. Using this formula, you should have no problem when completing the square. Thank you for watching, and I hope that you understand completing the square a little bit better now. Good luck on your math journey.